me at the brewery that we were in Meredith earlier, and General Bolduc was going to come, and General Bolduc is one of our fine law enforcement officers. By the way, give it up for our law enforcement. So General Bolduc had to continue doing what he was doing, and so Tim was nice enough to come and help us out. And what I have learned is this senator is very beloved. Very beloved. So you're clearly doing something right. Thank you for having me. So how many of you are hearing me for the first time today? Oh, wow. Where have y'all been? Welcome. We're glad to see you. It's always good to meet new friends, so I appreciate you being here. I grew up, Wolfboro is like a metropolis to me. I grew up in a small rural town in South Carolina, 2,500 people, 2 stoplights. You couldn't think about doing something wrong without somebody already telling your mom. My mom started a business out of the living room of her home. 30 plus years later, it was a successful company. I started doing the books for the family business when I was 13. Wasn't until I got to college that I realized that was child labor. I'm not an Ivy Leaguer. I went to a public university. I went to Clemson University. Go Tigers. Got some Tigers in the house. I graduated with a degree in accounting. I am not a lawyer. I'm an accountant. Accountants are problem solvers. Wouldn't it be nice to have an accountant in D.C.? I graduated from Clemson, went to work in the corporate world for a while, and then I came back home to the family business. And one day I happened to be telling my mom how hard it was to make $1 and how easy it was for government to take it. And my mom said, quit complaining about it, do something about it. I truly did not know you weren't supposed to run against a 30-year incumbent in a primary. Ignorance is bliss. I had never been politically active. Once I realized he was related to half the district, the only option was to win. So I went around the district and I said, we have way too many lawyers at the State House. I think they need a really good accountant. And the district took a chance on me and we won. When I got to the State House, my focus was on small businesses. Small businesses are the heartbeat of our economy. I've always felt like if you take care of small businesses first, you take care of everything else. So I've been there a few years and had earned some seniority. But in South Carolina, when they voted on things, they mostly voted by voice vote. All in favor, say aye, all opposed, nay, the ayes have it. But one day they passed through a bill that would give legislators a pay raise. All in favor, say aye, all opposed, silence. The ayes have it, yet to this day you can't find anyone that says they voted themselves a pay raise. I was furious because we had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican governor. And so I filed a bill that said anything important enough to be debated on the floor of the House or the Senate is important enough for people to know how their legislators voted. And the Speaker of the House said, put the bill away. We don't need to have it. We will decide what the public needs to see and what they don't. Long story short, when I didn't put the bill away, they stripped me of everything. I lost all of my seniority. I lost my committee assignments. I could take the well, no one would hear me speak. I could sponsor a bill, no one would co-sponsor. So I ran for governor. And I'm proud to say one of the first bills we signed into law is now in South Carolina. Anything important enough to be debated on the floor of the House or the Senate requires a legislative vote on the record, and we took it a step further and did it on every section of the budget as well. And I love music. I hope you loved my playlist. I love music, and so on the day of the bill signing, we blasted throughout the State House, Pat Benatar's Hit Me With Your Best Shot. When I became governor, South Carolina was hurting. We had 11% unemployment, we had thousands of people on welfare, and South Carolina was the butt of the jokes. And so we got to work. By the time I left, we were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. We brought in Mercedes-Benz, we brought in Volvo. We had 5 international tire companies, and they were referring to us as the beast of the Southeast, which I love. We acknowledged the truth. We said if you've got to show picture ID to buy Sudafed, if you've got to show picture ID to get on a plane, You should have to show picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process. We passed voter ID itself. We passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country, and by the time I left, the 11% unemployment was down to 4%. We moved thousands of people from welfare to work. We were named the friendliest state in the country, the most patriotic state in the country, and the #2 state in the country people were moving to. And then I got the call for the United Nations. And my honest answer was, I don't even know what the UN does. I just know everybody hates it. And I wasn't wrong about that. But I made a point when I went to the UN. I wanted countries to know what we were for and what America was against. I didn't care if they didn't like me, but I wanted them to respect America. And we got to work. We pulled ourselves out of the Iran deal. I negotiated with China to pass the largest set of sanctions against a country in a generation, against North Korea, and we got them to stop testing ballistic missiles. We acknowledged the truth and moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But the biggest thing that we did was we took the kick me sign off of our backs, and America was respected again at the UN. Now I'm running for president, and I don't need to tell you how bad things are. You don't have to turn on the news to see it. You feel it when you go to the grocery store. You feel it when you fill up your car with gas. Groceries and electricity are up 25%. The things we need, mortgage payments, insurance payments, rent, all of those things are all way up on things we have to have. And I would love to tell you that Biden did that to us. But I've always spoken in hard truths, and I'm going to do that with you tonight. Our Republicans did that to us too. You go back and look at that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that they passed with no accountability, that expanded welfare, that has now left us with 100 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. And did Republicans try and make it right? No. They doubled down and opened up earmarks and pet projects for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them last December. Want to know how they spent your money? $30 million on an honors college in Vermont, $10 million to tear down a hotel in Alaska, $7.5 million on a courthouse in Colorado, and the list goes on. In the 2024 appropriations budget, Republicans put in $7.4 billion worth of pet projects and earmarks. Democrats put in $2.8 billion. Now you tell me who the big spenders are. All while 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bill. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. You look at our education system and everybody wants to blame COVID for education. We had problems with education before COVID. Do you know right now in America, only 29% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading? 29%. Only 26% of 8th graders are proficient in math. If we don't take care of this, we're going to be in a world of hurt 10 years from now. Then you look at the situation on the border. I truly have run out of things to say about this. It is a complete dereliction of duty, what's happening. I've actually been to the border, and I didn't pull a Kamala, go and come back. I went 400 miles down that border. You're not ready for what I saw. Mounds of clothes, mounds of shoes, paraphernalia, rape areas that the women and girls have to walk through. When you get up in the morning, you get your coffee and you watch the news. When these ranchers get up in the morning, they get their coffee and they go see if anybody died crossing the fence. They pick up whatever little kids were left behind and turn them over to Border Patrol. When I met with multiple sheriffs, they said before 7 a.m. they round up whatever illegal immigrants they can find. They turn them over to Border Patrol, Border Patrol documents them and releases them until their court date years from now. And when I asked Border Patrol about their job, they said, you want to know what we do? We're glorified babysitters. They don't let us do our job. 7 million illegal immigrants had crossed the southern border. That doesn't even count the northern border. Almost 250,000 have crossed the northern border. We had enough fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. #1 cause of death for adults 18 to 45? Fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing when they send it over. And then my parents raised me to take care of those who take care of you. I'm going to ask you for taking care of those who take care of us. Right now in America, 33,000 of our veterans are homeless that we know of. 1 in 3 veterans suffers from PTSD or thoughts of suicide. We lose 22 heroes a day to suicide. If a veteran needs a doctor's appointment, on average, it takes them 29 days. Why 29 days? Because on the 30th day, they can go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. So midway through the 29 days, they get a call to reschedule, and the clock starts all over again. It is shameful how we treat our veterans. So that's a lot of bad, right? It's hard to find anything good. Any one of those things could have been handled by Congress. But what has Congress done for you lately? Nothing. Don't you think it's finally time we had term limits in D.C.? Don't you think we should have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75? And I'm not being disrespectful when I say that. We all know 75-year-olds that can run circles around us. And then we know Joe Biden. Right now, the Senate is the most privileged nursing home in the country. The reason why I'm saying that, and I don't care if you do it for 50 and up, these are people making decisions on our national security. These are people making decisions on the future of our economy. We need to know they're at the top of their game. But now I'm going to tell you what I told South Carolinians when I became governor. No more whining. No more complaining. Now we get to work. How do we fix it? When it comes to the economy, we start by clawing back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, let's go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud. 1 out of every $7 was fraudulent. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. You have to balance a budget every day. I had to balance a budget as governor. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. The next thing is, we have to let the middle class breathe. Right now in America, the rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is going away. We will start by making sure we eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. We will cut taxes on the middle class and simplify those brackets. We will make the small business tax cuts permanent. They made the corporate tax cuts permanent, but they made the small business tax cuts temporary. We will make them permanent because small businesses are the heartbeat of America. And then we'll focus on, I know, being a governor, presidents only meet with their governors once a year. I will meet with our governors once a quarter, Republican and Democrat, with the sole focus of getting all the federal programs we can and sending them down to the states. That will reduce the size of the federal government, but it will empower people on the ground. Think welfare, think healthcare, think education, all of those things, if suddenly you had control of it instead of some bureaucrats in DC. That's when we'll start to get our economy back on track. When it comes to schools, we knew in South Carolina if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we brought in their parents, we did reading remediation programs, and we set them up for success. We have to do that all over this country, or we're going to be in a world of hurt if we've got a bunch of kids that can't read. We've got to quit pushing them forward, and we've got to start holding them back and getting them reading again. And no parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need complete transparency in the classroom. As parents, we've got one job, and that's to get our kids right. That's why parents need to be able to decide which school their kids go to. Every child deserves a good education, regardless of where they're born and raised. We have got to stop educating kids based on a zip code and start letting their parents be more involved. And then let's build things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back into our high schools. We had apprenticeships all over South Carolina. We taught our kids how to build the things we were making. When you do that, you get our kids invested in our economy before they even finish. And it gives them opportunities that they didn't know they had. Let's do that across the country and get them invested. And as a point of personal privilege, for all you girl dads out there, and all you strong moms out there, it's important that we raise strong girls. Strong girls become strong women. Strong women become strong leaders. None of that happens if you have biological boys playing in women's sports. We've got to stop that. And when it comes to the border, we will do what I did in South Carolina, but we'll take it national. We will do a national E-Verify program where every business has to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. We will defund sanctuary cities once and for all. We will put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their jobs. We will go back to a Remain in Mexico policy so they never put foot on U.S. soil in the first place. And instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That's how we will close off the border. And when it comes to our veterans, we all have seen the images of the tears that are shed when our men and women are deployed. And then we've seen the images of the joy that comes when they come back home to us. I'm the wife of a combat veteran. My husband deployed to Afghanistan. When he came home to us, it was prayers answered. We felt blessed. But that was the easy part. When we got home, that's when life got tough. Michael couldn't hear loud noises. He couldn't be in crowds. Life had passed him by for the year that he was gone, and the transition was tough. We can't just love our men and women when they're gone. We gotta love them when they come back home too. And the way we do that is let's focus more on that transition. Let's give them the telehealth care that they need so they get the mental health care right when they need it. Let them go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. They've earned that right. Yeah. And the way I think we deal with veterans' health care is pretty simple. I think every member of Congress should have to get their health care from the VA. And you watch how fast that gets done. I'm telling you, it's going to be the best health care you've ever seen if we do that. Everybody's going to want it. So we have the answers. We know what we need to do on the domestic side. Now let's talk about national security. Did you ever think we'd look to the sky and see a Chinese spy balloon looking back at us? It was a national embarrassment. You've got, the world is literally on fire right now. We have a war in Europe. We've got a war in the Middle East. You've got China on the march. You've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles. But make no mistake, none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. The idea that my husband and his military brothers and sisters who served there had to watch us leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what that showed our enemies. And now what do you have? You've got the world on fire, and what's happening in DC? They're saying, do we support Ukraine or do we support Israel? Do we support Israel or do we support border security? Don't let them lie to you like that. That is a false premise. The idea that they would even say that is them trying to pull something over on you. Let's take it one at a time. Let's look at the war in Ukraine. First of all, you should know, I had no better friend at the United Nations than Ukraine. They voted with America on absolutely everything. Any press conference we had, Ukrainians were there without even being asked. They were incredibly pro-American. So here you have this pro-American, freedom-loving country who was invaded by a thug, who has now had 500,000 people killed because of Putin. And all they're trying to do is save their country. Now, I don't believe that America should ever give cash to any country. I don't think that we need to put troops on the ground. But I think that we need to give them the equipment, the ammunition to win. But let's look back. If Biden had done the right thing in the first place when Russia surrounded Ukraine, there never should have been a war in the first place. If Biden had given them the equipment and ammunition right when this war started, the war would be over already. But he's been slow through every bit of it. And why should we care about Ukraine? Because tyrants and dictators always tell us what they're going to do. They're actually very transparent. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. They did. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched them. China said Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said after Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries, and then we are at war. We are trying to prevent war. It should always be about prevention. Always. So to prevent war, Ukraine has to win. And don't ever forget, a win for Russia is a win for China. They named themselves unlimited partners. If we were to just support Ukraine to the level that we have now, that only costs us 3.5% of our national defense budget. 3.5%, that's it. The Europeans have actually put in more than us, and they should. It's their neighborhood. Now let's go to Israel. I'm haunted by what happened October 7th. And the reason I'm haunted is because 5 years ago, I gave a speech to the world at the United Nations and told them that we knew there were maps. And these maps belong to Hamas. And it showed that if they could get past that barrier, this is how they were going to kill as many Jews as fast as they could before they got stopped. And it happened. And you think about what happened. This wasn't just killings. This was torture. They beheaded people. They burned babies alive. They raped those girls at that concert, and when they dragged their bodies through the streets of Gaza, what did they say? Death to Israel, death to America. There would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There would be no Houthis without Iran. Those proxies that are shooting our military men and women in Syria and Iraq, all because of Iran. But this has never been a scenario where Israel needs America. It's always been that America needs Israel. Israel's the tip of the spear when it comes to defeating terrorism. They always have been. They're a bright spot in a tough neighborhood. That's why we have to care about Israel. Because God help us, if we don't do this right, we gotta get it right. So if you look now at the Israel situation, if we were to support Ukraine, and if we were to support Israel, that's 5% of our national defense budget. Now, border security should be priority number one. Without question, priority number one. Because we better quit acting like it's September 10th and start remembering what September 12th felt like. It only takes one person. So if we fund border security, Israel, and Ukraine, that's less than 20% of Biden's green subsidies that he passed. It's not that we don't have the money. It's the priorities that they want to do. And we have to go back to what's the role of government? Government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never intended to be all things to all people. We should only be focused and make our priorities on national security, whatever it takes to keep Americans safe. And America should never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. Because on September 12th, we needed a lot of friends, and they were there. And to get friends, you gotta be a friend. Now let's talk about our number one national security threat, China. China has been planning war with us for years, and that's not me being dramatic. They've already infiltrated our country. They bought 400,000 acres of U.S. soil, most recently near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where our most sensitive drone technology is. You got upset about the Chinese spy balloon? What about the fact that 90% of law enforcement drones in America are Chinese? Think about all the many surveillance that's happening. You've got these Chinese police stations, you've got a spy center, spy base, Chinese spy base going off our shores in Cuba. Just wait till they put military there. We can never let that happen. You look at the fact that they continue, there's certain technologies that China uses to build up their military and threaten America. The Biden administration approved 70% of those requests last year. We've had enough Americans die from fentanyl than the Iraq, Afghanistan, and Vietnam wars combined. We lost 75,000 Americans just last year. And China's building up their military at a scary pace. They now have 500 nuclear warheads. That's 100 more than they had last year. They have the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 270 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. They have 370 ships. I'm sorry if I said 270. We won't even have that in 2 decades. They're doing artificial intelligence, they're doing cyber, they're doing space. They've developed hypersonic missiles. We've barely gotten started. And now China's the leading developer of neurostrike weapons. Weapons engineered to change the brain activity of military commanders and segments of the population. That's who we're dealing with. So don't let Biden and Yellen tell you that China is a competitor. I dealt with China every day at the United Nations. They never saw us as a competitor. They saw us as an enemy. We've got to start looking at them the way they look at us. So how do we deal with China? The first thing you do is you stop selling any U.S. soil to them, and we take back every bit of that land they've already purchased. We go to our universities and we say, you either take foreign money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over, and we get that foreign intrusions out of our universities. We blacklist all the technologies that help China and hurt America. And then we go and tell China, we're going to end all normal trade relations with you until you stop murdering Americans with fentanyl. You watch how fast they fix it, because they need our economy. And then there were two things that China, Russia, and Iran never wanted us to have when I was at the UN. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We shouldn't just be energy independent, we should be energy dominant. We have got to start using those resources that we have and use them as a source for good. Right now, the EPA cares more about protecting sagebrush lizards than they do about you being able to afford your electricity bill. We should be using those resources, permitting those pipelines as fast as we can, exporting as much liquefied natural gas as we can, and let that become an economic powerhouse for us. And then, remember, strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars. We have to build up our military, and that doesn't mean throwing a lot of money at the Department of Defense. That actually means you clean it up. Get rid of the bureaucracy, get rid of the red tape, get rid of all the slowness that has happened. Get them back mission-focused on modernizing us for the threats of tomorrow. In the past, we fought wars that were land, air, and sea. In the future, we're going to have to be focused on cyber and artificial intelligence and space. We need to be ready. We need our men and women to have the most modern equipment possible. And for goodness sake, we have to stop these gender pronoun classes that are happening in the workplace. It's demoralizing to our men and women. Let's get it back on track. Let's get them focused. When we do those things, countries will know American strength is back. And think about this. Why is it that the Taiwanese wanted America and the West to support Ukraine? Because they knew if Ukraine wins, China won't invade Taiwan. Why is it that the Ukrainians want America and the West to support Israel? Because they know if Iran wins, Russia wins. You have to connect the dots on this. There is an unholy alliance between China, Russia, and Iran. They are all bound together in their hatred for America. If we are going to defeat one, you have to be willing to take on all. And the way we do that is for America to be strong. Stop being reactionary to them and start letting them know what we expect of them. That's when they will start to get back on track. So we have the answers. We know what we need to do domestically. We know what we need to do from a foreign policy standpoint. But the first thing we have to stop is this national self-loathing that has taken over our country. The idea that they say America's bad or rotten or racist. I was elected the first female minority governor in history. America's not racist, we're blessed. Our kids need to know to love America. They need to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance when they start school every day. You know, 5 months ago, I dropped my husband Michael off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to fight for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. But in order to do that, we have to acknowledge some hard truths. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. And the only way we're going to do that is if we leave the negativity and the baggage of the past and we go with a new generational leader. Another hard truth. I think President Trump was the right president at the right time. I was proud to serve America in his administration. I agree with a lot of his policies. But rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him. You know I'm right. Chaos follows him. And with our country this divided and the world on fire the way it is, we can't be living in chaos through this. Because there's one thing that is for sure. A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris, and we cannot survive a President Kamala Harris. If you look, the media loves to show you these general elections, right? And usually they're showing if it's a Biden-Trump matchup, they're pretty much even. On a good day, he'll be up by 2 points. In those same polls, I beat Biden by 10 to 13 points. This isn't just about the presidency. This is about governors up and down the ticket. This is about House seats. This is about Senate seats. This is about really getting our government back on track in the way that we need. We can do this. I know we can do this because I trust you. I really do. I trust Iowans. I trust Granite Staters. I trust South Carolinians because we always take this really seriously. And so in order to do this, it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from everyone in this room. Courage for me to run. And courage for every one of you to remember. Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't vote in this primary. It matters. When I announced, someone asked me why I was running. And I said, you know, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for my husband, Michael, and his military brothers and sisters. They need to know their sacrifice matters. They need to know that we love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. And I'm doing this for my son, who's a senior in college. And I am tired of watching him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. And for the first time, 81% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we have. We can't be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. We do have a country to save. But I'll tell you this, if you join with me in this fight, I promise you that our best days are yet to come. Thank you very much. God bless you. I appreciate it.